Hello, my name is Preston Dawson, and I'm going to talk a little bit about today some asynchronous and synchronous learning strategies for high school students, a little bit of parent tips, a little bit of student tips, and a little bit of teacher tips as well. I'm doing this as a presentation for a class I'm in from Grand Canyon University, Multimedia Instructional Strategies. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, for this, I've created a little infographic, and so I'm going to share that with y'all now, and we'll discuss that uh, as we go through it. So let me share my screen here, and here we go. Here's the big version. We'll zoom in a little bit so we can get to the good stuff. So we'll start, learning synchronous versus asynchronous, some pros and cons of both. Synchronous will be on the left side here, and asynchronous will be on the right side here. So the pros of synchronous could be that questions are able to be answered immediately. It's excellent for visual and auditory learners, meaning that synchronous takes place, in person or in live action online. So you could definitely conversate with your teacher or the instructor and get feedback right immediately instead of having to send an email, maybe wait a little ways or a little bit of time to get that question answered. Some cons of synchronous. Obviously, you must be available at set times to access material, and you can't always access the material afterwards. Say it's a lecture from the teacher. If it's in person, you might not have that opportunity to go back and access that material unless you're taking good notes. We'll get to that a little bit later. Some pros from asynchronous learning side. Can be held at anywhere at any time. So it's great for tactile learners, people who love to learn by doing and enjoy teaching themselves a little bit. This is a great option for those types of learners. Some cons for asynchronous: you must possess good time management skills to make sure you're submitting your assignments on time, getting your work done in a timely fashion. You also need internet connection. I don't know of any kind of asynchronous learning environment that you could partake in that you wouldn't need an internet connection. So you definitely need those things. We'll move on to some teacher tips here. Some synchronous teacher tips is punctuality is paramount. With synchronous learning, make sure you are there on time. I think this goes without saying, but obviously if you're holding a meeting, whether it's in person or online, then definitely you should be on time for that. If you're not on time, then what example are you setting for your students? So you definitely need to make punctuality paramount. Providing material and information after lessons is highly beneficial for students. If you can provide a summary for students to reflect on, or a maybe a recording if it's held online, is always great for students to have a reference to go back and be able to look at and have a little bit of a summary of the lesson. Some asynchronous teacher tips. Communication can often be difficult. Setting up office hours is something I found largely beneficial when I was going through this. Um, so I can sit down and tell my kids that, hey, if you have questions, I'm going to be available from this time to this time, and then again from this time to this time. That way, I could sit on Microsoft Teams is what we use. I could sit there and any kid could hop in and ask questions. We could talk, have a live conversation, or just know that I was there during those times to answer emails or anything that they might need. And that makes it a lot easier for you as a teacher if you're not bouncing back and forth all day trying to get those done with. If you just set aside some time, it makes it a lot easier to get in touch with your students. Providing in-depth feedback so students can know exactly how they can improve. This is important. Obviously, they cannot ask you in live time, say a class raise their hand. So make sure you're providing great feedback for them so they know exactly how they need to improve. Some student tips for synchronous. You must be physically present, but make sure mentally present as well. It's easy to roll into class and be half asleep and not really be completely locked in. So just make sure that you're physically and mentally present as well. Practice good note-taking strategies. As we talked about earlier, you may not be able to access the material afterwards, but if you're taking good notes and practicing good note-taking strategies, then most likely you're going to be just fine for reflective material. For asynchronous, Practice good time management skills with agendas or calendars. Set aside time for learning. So there's so many great apps and obviously hard copies of agendas and stuff for students to use to make sure that they have that time management skill. I know that when I was a student, I actually went to my local Walmart and bought a big calendar and wrote down times and due dates and when I needed to be, focusing on my work and all that good stuff as well. Simple things like that can go a long ways and help you with managing your time. Creating a designated learning space separate from distractions is very important. It's easy to, pick up your phone and scroll through social media or, have the TV going in the background, whatever it might be. But creating a learning space that's free from those distractions is very important to your success. It can be very tough to sit down and focus with a lot of distractions going on. So create some kind of atmosphere, a little place, a little safe place in your house, or maybe it's a library, somewhere that you can go and, be free from distractions and focus on your work. For some parent tips for Synchronous, be involved with your students' learning, ask them questions and connect with the teacher. Active parents are the best parents. Parents that know what's going on and are involved in their kids' learning. It's irreplaceable. You can't ask for anything more as a teacher. To have that support at home is huge, and it's highly beneficial for your students. Set expectations for your students' learning and help them achieve it. Again, just be present. Be clear with your communication and your expectations with their grades and their efforts. That'll go a long way to getting success in the classroom. For asynchronous parent tips, we try to set a school-like schedule for your kids. This way they can find a good routine. Routine with this level of kids, with the middle school, high school level kids, is everything. Kids thrive on routine, and in an asynchronous environment, it can be really hard to achieve that. But if you can kind of set some boundaries and set some routines the best that you can, your students will likely succeed because it's what they're used to. Connecting with other parents can also be a very valuable network for assistance with asynchronous learning. This is an awesome tool. I know I tried to create an email chain when I was in the asynchronous style teaching with all of my parents. So we had a very clear and open line of communication. Maybe somebody needs some help with creating that routine for their students at home. And that creates an awesome opportunity to kind of get to know some other parents and, ask them about strategies or help them if they might need it. Having that networking capability and creating those relationships can be super beneficial to helping your students succeed asynchronously. So like I said, my name is Preston Dawson, and I'm glad that you are viewing this video. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment and subscribe. Hopefully you have a great few takeaways from asynchronous and synchronous learning. Thank you.